Town Council meeting in here in Council Chambers, Monday, August 22nd, 2016, 7 p.m. Agenda item number 1, Pledge of Allegiance. Can you please join me? Agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Councilor Auclair.
Excused.
Councilor Carrasco.
Present.
Councilor Clements.
Present.
Councilor DePietro.
Present.
Councilor Estrada.
Excused.
Councilor McKenzie.
Here.
Councilor Manna. Present. Councilor Steves. Councilor Vecchia.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent, 2 excused.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, August 8th, 2016.
Second.
Any questions, corrections? Any abstentions?
Me.
1 abstention. All those in favor? Simple hand vote. 5, 1 abstention. Thank you. Agenda item number 4, subcommittee reports. A, General Government, Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Meeting of the General Government Subcommittee was held on Monday, August 15th, 7 p.m. in the Rice Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Councilor Steves and Estrada, and Citizens Member Rick Nash. Also in attendance were Councilor Wally McKenzie, Director of Inspection Services Pelletier, Economic Director Rosemary Scrivens, presenters Michael Berry and Kelly Brown, Citizen Mike Janes, and Maureen Doyle. Chairman, I opened the meeting at 7 p.m. The first agenda item was to review the recommendation of Mike Janes as Citizens Member to General Government Subcommittee for a 1-year term effective immediately through July 31st, 2017, and entertain a motion to vote to Subcouncil for ratification. The motion was made by Councilor Steves, seconded by Councilor Strata. Mr. Nash commented on Mr. Janes' past participation in numerous committees. A vote was taken. It was 4-0 to send to Council. Agenda item number 2, there was a presentation of the State of Massachusetts Stretch Energy Code by Mr. Mike Berry and Ms. Kelly Brown, Department of Energy Resources. Director Scrivens gave an overview of the green communities application that the town is currently working on to be designated a green community. This would enable Southbridge to be eligible for many grants that fund energy efficiency initiatives. There are 5 criteria that the town must enact in order to complete the application that is due the end of October. We are trying to get the application done with the help of the CMRPC, Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. We are underway on achieving the criteria necessary to be eligible for up to $200,000 in grants that can be used for many energy efficiency projects in town, such as lighting, heating systems, and other efficient mechanical upgrades. One criteria is to adopt the, quote, stretch code through the bylaw process. The core goal of being a green community is to reduce the town's overall energy usage by 20% within 5 years. A presentation regarding all details of exactly what the code is and how it was originally established in 2009, how it has changed to become more integrated with current building codes, and how it affects contractors and homeowners was made. At this point, there is an attachment called the Stretch Energy Code Summary, and that will be part of the minutes. We are having a presentation this evening, pretty much the same presentation that the subcommittee had, so I won't go into that full explanation. Our presenters, Mike and Kelly, will do that this evening. Let's see, the presentation of all the details. Let's see what I see. Several concerns were raised regarding its effects on renovation projects and commercial construction. While it was overreaching and somewhat burdensome to contractors in its initial years, Mr. Berry explained that the newly adopted code that takes effect in January of 2017 is much more in line with the changes that have also been made to the base energy code. Many communities who did not adopt the stretch code years ago have since done so. To date, there are 177 communities in Mass with the stretch code, and 155 have been designated as green communities and have taken full advantage of the initial grants that are now eligible for the recurring yearly competitive round grants. Towns submit proposals for energy savings initiatives, and if the plan is approved, they receive additional funds to execute the plan. The presenters will be providing the information, as I said, this evening at August 22nd. Mr. Janes asked, what happens if a builder doesn't comply with the code? Mr. Pelletier noted the occupancy permit would not be issued. He also asked, where does the money come from? And it was stated that the funding is outside of the Mass budget, coming from alternative compliance payments and carbon offset funds regulated by the Department of Environmental Protection. It was also stated that a community can opt out of the program in the future if it votes to do so. Agenda item number 3, discuss the state of Massachusetts stretch code adopted by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards in May of 2015 and consider adopting said code to designate Southbridge as a green community and entertain a motion to submit to council for 3 public readings. There was considerable discussion as to how the motion should be made to send to council. Mr. Nash was concerned that the backup document we received was based on the old stretch code requirements and not what was presented and what we may adopt, that being the 2017 version. Director Scrivens noted she had taken the information from the website a couple of weeks earlier and had not realized the site had been updated. The presenters did give a handout with the new information, but Mr. Nash was not comfortable with the recommendation of adoption to council without having read the entire 10-page code that Mr. Barry said is available online. He believed the code was a good idea, but had not done the proper research by the documents provided. Director Scrivens noted the time-sensitive nature of getting the bylaw passed if it were to be compliant on our application. I suggested that we vote to send it to council to begin the reading process, as Director Scrivens would move quickly to send more information to council for review. I said that through the process of the 3 readings, the public could have input and be familiarized with the new bylaw. The readings could take up to 6 weeks, depending on the meeting schedule, which should be plenty of time for all councilors to ask questions and make an informed vote once the readings concluded. The committee was in agreement. A motion was made by Mr. Nash and seconded by Councilor Steves to vote to submit to council for 3 public readings with no recommendation of adoption at this time. The motion passed 4-0. Mr. Nash, motion to adjourn. Councilor Steve seconded. We adjourn the meeting at 9:20, respectfully submitted. Myself as the committee chair. And as I said, there'll be a presentation this evening, so the people out there watching and those in the audience will have some idea as to what we're talking about. And I will point out that while we had it on as an agenda item for a first reading, it was going to be agenda item number 13. Because of the format that was presented to us, which is not compliant really with our bylaw format, we're going to postpone the official first reading until the September 12th meeting, in which time we will have the exact bylaw as it will appear in our book down the road. So that gives us even more time as councilors and the public to ask questions, hear the presentation, and be fully prepared to move forward with this, the adoption potentially of the stretch code. And I have a meeting scheduled this Thursday, I think it's the 24th, and that will be 25th, excuse me, somewhere, as usual. The 25th at 6 p.m., Rice Conference Room, I believe, is where it's at. It's regarding the police department and a budget item that we had voted on back when Mr. Pecos was our manager, and we're looking to change up the allocation of the funds a bit and for security purposes. So those who are interested in attending, please do so.
What is it for?
It's a general government budget allocation meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. B, Department of Public Works, Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I do not have any minutes to read, no meetings scheduled, but I would like to put out there that we do only have 1 citizen member. So if you have applied to another subcommittee and did not get on, or if you are thinking about applying, the DPW subcommittee does need 1 more citizen member. Thank you.
Thank you. C, Education and Human Services, Councilor Steves.
First off, I want to apologize for being late. I got stuck at work. I have no minutes and no meetings scheduled. And to echo what Councilor Manager said, we are still looking for citizen members. We do have 2 that had applied. We do have 2 that had applied, but they are also applying for school committee, which we're going to deal with next month. So we are still open for people, so please put your name in.
I can't hear what he said. When is he going to have a meeting?
I don't have one.
No meeting. He's looking for members.
Okay.
Thank you. Planning and Development, Councilor Claire, and she's excused this evening, but there is a meeting scheduled tomorrow, Tuesday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. in the Rice Conference Room. There's 2 agenda items. It's review the recommendation from the Planning Board to amend several articles of the zoning bylaw, and then review a layout revised for Goddard Street plan. So if you are interested, please come out tomorrow for that meeting. E, Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Vecchia.
Thank you. We're going to call a meeting for Tuesday, September 6th at 6 p.m. That's the day after Labor Day in the Rice Conference Room. It's to replace the 3 retired police officers Officer Rosa, Officer LaBeouf, and Officer Southall. It's already in the FY17 operating budget, so we will discuss it at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. 6 p.m.?
6 p.m., September 6th, Tuesday. Rice Conference Room downstairs.
Thank you. Now, moving on to agenda item number 5, Chairman's announcements. I have several this evening that I would just want to make. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Bicentennial Committee and also the Southbridge Rotary Club for the fireworks. It was well attended, and the weather was an issue, and that's something that cannot be controlled. But therefore, if you understand logistics and process, rescheduling such an event would have increased the cost, almost doubled. So we want to thank the Bicentennial Committee and the Rotary Club. They did an excellent job. Kudos also to the Southbridge Police Department. They got all the vehicles in and out in a matter of 20 minutes, and it was packed. They did an excellent job. There was tons of volunteers. It was a great day. We fought some raindrops here and there, but at the end of the day, the fireworks still went off. It was a great show. Thank you to our fire department, our fire chief, who spent hours up there manning, also with the emergency management team that came out, and they were in their little trailer monitoring the weather, making sure that everything was running smoothly. So I want to say thank you to them for a job well done, and thank you to the Southbridge Bicentennial Committee, because a lot of work was put into it. And for me, I enjoyed it. I attended it. My family was there, and I think it was a great event. Second, this morning, I want to say congrats to Dr. Huzenga and her district leadership team on a great kickoff this morning. I was able to be there with a few of my counselors that were there this morning to hear Dr. Huzenga's kind of kickoff speech. It was an excellent, excellent speech. Great leadership was shown, and also we were able to, I was able to get to hear a portion of Sonia Manzano. She is an author, a wife, a mother, but she is AKA Maria from Sesame Street. As I heard her describe her upbringing in her life, it kind of made me reflect on some of the struggles that I went through when I was in school, and some of the things that we can relate with our community, with a lot of the children here. So I'm excited to be part of the turnaround plan, to be part of what we are seeing at the high school and in all the other schools. It was great to see the staff really energetic. One of the things that I was really impressed with, if I can find it, Dr. Huzenga came up with this idea, her team, and basically had all the people in the building pull up in their bags that they were given, and it says, "I stand for." And she challenged all her educators and all those that were in the building to find out, what do you stand for? What is going to be the drive for this year's school district and where we're going to go? And she had us all write this down, and I quickly grabbed my Sharpie that was in my bag, and I wrote, "I stand for my community." And I believe that the school district is part of my community. So therefore, though I might not be serving on the school committee, I am going to be involved, and I'm going to urge the council to be involved, to celebrate the successes of our students, to celebrate the successes of of each school, because I think it's important for the community, for the morale of our teachers, for the morale of our district. I think we're heading in the right direction. Some of us get scared when we heard the word receivership, but I think we're going in the right direction. So I'm excited. And again, I just want to congratulate Dr. Huzenga and her district team, and good luck to all the students in Southbridge that enter the school buildings next week. Moving on with that, just segue, the last day to apply for for the open seat that is on the school committee is September 9th. There is no electronic,
Wasn't it? The deadline was last week.
That was last week.
yes, excuse me. Yes, sorry,
Done.
it's done. It is done. But we will be holding a joint council meeting on the 12th at 6:30. Therefore, all those candidates that applied, you are invited to be here. So you will be given a few minutes to kind of present yourself and let yourself be known to the community, and therefore then the school committee that's there now and this town council will vote in a new person. So that is September 12th at 6:30. Next, I will like to address this to our town manager. Since I don't get a counselor's forum, I just want to kind of mention a concern that I have, because I think it's kind of difficult for me to just see it happen and not see anything be addressed. I know this council earmarked previous part of the capital expenses. We earmarked $25,000 for parks, previous to that, there was a presentation that was done here with the Adopt the Park program and the conditions of our parks, and they went down the whole list. And one of my major concerns was the liability aspect in regards to some of the equipment that was being used. And I mentioned Walcott Playground. There was a slide there that had a hole, and it said it was going to be, it could cost anywhere between $500 to $1,000 to replace that slide. And I went down there, and I went down there with a bunch of kids. There was 35 of them with me, and it was very disappointing to see that the measure of fixing our playground slide was duct tape. I think that's uncalled for, especially when we, the council, earmarked $25,000 to get this fixed. It's very disappointing. So I think it's unacceptable. It's a playground that's being used by our kids. I think we need to take pride in what we own. Again, it's a liability. A kid can easily slide down that slide and get a nice cut. And I think if, Mr. Town Manager, if you can address that, because I think we need to take pride in what we own. And seeing that the direction of the council, we voted for the parks to get fixed, but that's just my pet peeve, and I just wanted to let you know. Another announcement, I want to also, moving on to a different positive way of thinking here, I want to say kudos to the Southbridge Police Department. This past weekend, our police department did something that is worthy of praise. It's something that I hadn't seen done here in our community. The police department, they went around and purchased ice cream for every child they encountered. It was an incredible act, and the beauty of the whole thing is it was paid for by drug money that has been collected and taken away from drug dealers. So it's great to see our police department and Chief Woodson and Deputy Chief Dingy working and continuing to build relationship with our children. I just want to say kudos to them. Thank you for continuing to invest in our children. But also today, this afternoon, there was our detective unit made a huge statement with a huge drug raid on Central Street. And I just want to say thank you for their dedication. As you heard earlier, Councilor Vecchia said that they're looking to fill 3 retirements. Our police department is understaffed and working very hard, and today they made a huge statement that, we're working to clean up our streets, and we've seen it. In the last 3 to 4 weeks, they've had 3 to 4 drug busts. So they're constantly working, and I just want to say thank you. And again, I just want to encourage citizens, if you see something, speak up. Because it takes all of us to say that drugs are not welcome in our community. We need to clean up our streets. We need to clean up our community because we're losing too many lives. So I just want to say kudos to the Southbridge Police Department. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we can get you 3 more guys so you can be up to speed. That's all I have for announcements. Moving on to agenda item number 6, town manager announcements. Mr. San Angelo.
Well, first, it's always difficult going after the chairman because he took away about 3 of the things I wanted to talk about. But I am going to read a press release. It's sort of a good segue from the chairman. There was a major arrest today, and I want to read the press release about that. And I really want to extend, like the chairman did, appreciation to our police department, but even more so, the state police and other people that were involved. So I'm going to read the press release so that you have an understanding of what actually occurred. As a result of numerous citizen and business complaints, the Southbridge Police Department Detective Bureau initiated an investigation into the illegal distribution of narcotics coming from 66 and 70 Central Street in Southbridge. As a result of the many hours of surveillance, 3 apartments in the buildings were identified as being used by several men to distribute heroin and crack cocaine. The men were also using juveniles as lookouts to notify them of any police presence. As a result of the investigation, search warrants were obtained and executed on August 22nd, that's today. The search warrants were executed with the assistance of the South Worcester County Counter-Crime and Drug Task Force, the Massachusetts State Police Detectives Narcotics Unit, and the CEM LEC SWAT team. As a result of the warrants, an amount of cocaine, heroin, crack cocaine, and U.S. currency were seized. Exact amounts are not available at this time, as some of the substances are still being tested. Original charges may result, and it lists here, I'm not going to read it, the name of some of the people that were arrested. Now, I wanted to point this out and read this today because every time that this occurs, our police officers are putting their lives on the line walking into these dangerous situations. And we had over 30 police officers involved in today's raid, and you might have noticed a police helicopter flying above them as well to ensure the protection. So it's not just a Southbridge effort, but it's a real regional effort and state effort being involved in this. And in spite of these officers standing around, one of the police cars was keyed. So what does that tell you? You know, Southbridge is making a big effort in terms of, trying to help victims. The substance abuse user in Harrington Hospital and our police force are working together to help them. But to let it be clear that drug dealers are not welcome here in town, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to pound on them and to kick them out of our town. So kudos to our whole law enforcement community for their efforts. And, I think the answer is find someplace else to deal your poison. We are not going to accept it here in Southbridge. Another big issue that people should be aware of, and I think most people are starting to see it, and I want to read another press release regarding the water ban, which is really, really critical at this time. As you know, we've had a drought, and there's not been a lot of water, and that's very concerning. So I'm going to read the press release, which is issued from our Department of Public Works. And it was issued immediately. You probably saw the electronic sign around town, some posters around town, and we need to spread the word to everybody because there's still people out there watering their lawn or washing their car, and we got to get this message out throughout the whole community. So it's Southbridge Water System issues water ban. Southbridge Charlton starting immediately on Friday, August 19, 2016. The town of Southbridge and Southbridge Water System will be complying with the Massachusetts Drought Task Force declaration of a drought warning by issuing a mandatory water ban, and I stress mandatory. The town of Southbridge and Southbridge Water Department are requiring all Southbridge and Charlton water customers to refrain from all outside water use at all times of the day. Please turn off all outside sprinkler systems, no watering with outside hoses, and refrain from filling swimming pools, washing cars, or washing buildings. Our neighborhood towns also fall under the same drought warning regardless of the type of water source, reservoirs, or town wells. Certain water uses are not subject to the restrictions, such as production of food and fiber, health and safety reasons, maintenance of livestock, and core functions of a business, for example, irrigation for a nursery. The Southbridge Water Department was informed that the Massachusetts Drought Management Task Force has raised the level of current drought to a drought warning. A drought warning status is in effect for all of central and northeast Massachusetts. Western Massachusetts, along with the southeast region, are currently under a drought watch and could join us in warning in the future. The declaration of being in a drought warning is a regional issue, and while it is not a direct reflection on the levels of the Southbridge water system reservoirs, we feel it's prudent to practice water conservation at this time. The Quinnipiac River Basin that we are located in and our entire region is experiencing abnormally dry conditions. Currently, Southbridge reservoirs are at least at a level of 84% of capacity. I know normally they're at like 94%, so it's a 10% reduction. And while this is within our historical average, the levels are the lower end of the average and have been decreasing in recent weeks. Participation reported at the Southbridge Water Filtration Plant over the last 12 months is 8 inches below historical levels. The recent heavy rains have helped, however, we are still below normal participation levels. The declaration of drought warning from the Drought Task Force will remain in effect until levels return to normal in the affected region. So again, if you see a neighbor, be polite, but let people know about the ban. Make sure it's clear to everyone. We are doing our best to spread the message throughout the community, but frankly, we need your help as well. Councilors all received some charts as well from DPW, so if you have any questions, that information I think was given to you as well. The chairman made some comments about this morning's kickoff at the school system, and I was there as well as with other councilors. And I got to tell you, I was impressed at the team that the school system has put together. And it really is a team of veterans and a tremendous amount of new teachers that have that excitement and who are inspired to really do great things. So I agree with the chairman. I think it's going to be a great school year. I think they really are on the right path, and really what we need is them to keep this path going for a long period of time. The town has really suffered from change. Change is good, too much change is bad, and that's what we've had over there, constant change. So I think that's going very, very well. My last comment on the fireworks, while the weather was horrible, it was a great event, and I thank all the people that were involved in that event as well, Mr. Chairman. It was nice to see so many councilors at the event, and kudos to the Bicentennial Committee, who frankly has done an awesome job with every event that they've had. I know that Gus, you played a big role, and former Chairman Moriarty. It has really been a great year, and you guys should be proud of what you guys have done. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7A, presentations. Tonight we have Mr. John Faries and Mr. Tom Q from Casella, and they're going to provide a quarterly report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As I stated in our first quarter review, we will be presenting before the board each quarter to provide updates on financial and services between Casella and the town of Southbridge. This is a financial and service report. In quarter 2, which runs April through June, we disposed of 90,126.75 tons of waste, which resulted in a royalty payment to the town of Southbridge of $617,692.24. This is compared to last year for the same time period of 120,000 tons, 120,934.65, with a royalty of 830,291.89. This is a drop of almost 31,000 tons, and a loss of 213,000 tons, $213,000, in royalties to the town. The reason for the drop is of the rerouting of the waste away from the landfill. We are rerouting due to the prolonged permitting process, and will continue to see drops in tonnages until the permitting is resolved. As you kind of maybe remembered, we talked to the town and told them about us dropping some of the tonnages so that we could get through the permitting process. It's at great expense for Casella to do this, along with adding to our carbon footprint in Massachusetts. We also provided trash disposal for the quarter for the town of Southbridge in the amount of $168,750. We didn't pay any taxes in the quarter. We pay them twice a year. So the next time I come, I'll give you the quarterly, semi-annual update on that. We changed our waste cover to environmentally sound material. It's called Posi Shell. It'll actually allow us to increase the amount of airspace in the landfill, which will increase the amount of revenue to both Casella and the town. During the Household Hazardous Waste Day, we drew 400 cars between the towns of Southbridge and Charlton. We were gold sponsor for the Harrington Hospital, A Fair to Remember, which is an event to raise awareness for the treatment of the opium addiction. We were also partners with the new local police drug detection canine. We also sponsored a 4-day emergency site overview with the Southbridge Fire Department to create a workable plan between the landfill and the fire department for any potential issues that might occur at the site. We were also proud sponsor as well as volunteers for the Southbridge Bicentennial Fireworks. We are also active member in both the Rotary this quarter along with the newly formed Southbridge Business Partnership. And then Tom's here to talk about updates on the website.
Before Mr. Q, Councilor Vecchio has a question.
The question I have is about, you stated that the royalties we took in were $213,000 less.
Yeah, that's for the quarter over, same period last year. So
And-
for the 3 months this year versus the 3 months last year, yes.
Then, can you state in a little bit more detail where do those royalties come from?
So the royalties come from the tons of trash that are delivered in the landfill, and the town receives roughly $6.50 a ton for every ton of trash. So we had to scale back the tons while we're in the permitting process.
That includes even the intake that we take from outsiders, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
And, while I'm up here, any other questions?
None.
Thank
Seeing
you.
none. Thank you. Mr. Q.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's nice to see you all again. My job is a lot easier than John's. I'm just here to update you on the website. Starting today, we have gone bilingual. We have the Spanish site. We had a local resident, Enrique Ortiz, who was suggested by the Deputy Chief of Police. He's a recent graduate from Westfield State, sociology and Spanish degrees, great kid, a young man. He did a terrific job, and it was released today. It was suggested to me, and we will do this. We will also include all releases of information, including permit, landfill handouts, printed material, or even newspaper ads. From now on, will be in both English and Spanish. So across the board, everybody is the same. As for the existing website, since we opened it last quarter, we've had over 750 visitors to our site, and they are averaging about 4.5 minutes per visit. They're spending some time on it. They're actually reading it, which is encouraging to us. Technically, the questions that come into the Q&A forum have been responded to promptly. We've had hundreds of questions. We try to put together, if there's 8 from 8 different people, it's the same question. We try to just put the best one out of the group in. We've answered every question that's been asked of us. That's about it. We'll update again in another quarter, and hopefully the Spanish site will go smoothly. The site for it is the same as southbridgelandfill.com, but it's before that, it's spanish.southbridgelandfill.com. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7B, we have a presentation. It's from Massachusetts Stretch Energy Code by Mike Berry. They will go on and still present the presentation, so we do have the information, and then, like Councilor Clement said, we will come back with the other readings next time.
Excuse me, Chairman, I just want to mention that Kelly Brown, who is the Regional Director for the Department of Energy Resources, is going to speak first and kind of talk about the policy and the state program, and then she will introduce Mike Berry, who will get into the kind of the guts of the actual stretch code.
Kelly Brown?
Kelly Brown.
Thank you.
Welcome.
She wasn't on our agenda. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. As Rosemary already said, my name is Kelly Brown. I work for the Mass Department of Energy Resources under the Green Communities Division. And tonight I just wanted to give a high-level overview of what the community is looking at when becoming a green community. And then we'll end when I lead it on over to Mike, who will talk specifically about the Stretch Energy Code. So the Green Communities Designation and Grant Program started back in 2010. We've had 9 rounds of communities come in to date, and it provides grants to qualifying communities for energy efficiency projects. To date, we provided up to $10 million in grant funds, and those grant funds, as said previously from the subcommittee meeting, they come from 2 sources of funding: RGGI, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and then ACP funds, Alternative Compliance Payments, both are not included in the general funds of the state. Now, there's 5 specific criteria that qualify a community to become a designated green community and have access to the grant funding. The first is to adopt as-of-right siting, and that can be done through generation, manufacturing, or research and development. The town of Southbridge is already in the process of moving forward with a solar bylaw, and that would meet criteria 1, and I know you'll be hearing more about that in the coming months. Criteria 2 is for that solar bylaw, we'd want to see an expedited permitting process in place. That means if an applicant came forward and wanted to put in that solar system, that the permitting process to do that would take less than 1 year. The third criteria is to put forward an energy reduction plan, and that's 2 pieces: to have a baseline that involves all municipal energy usage, so buildings, vehicles, and streetlights, and then you take that baseline and that municipal energy usage and you show how you're going to reduce it by 20% over a 5-year period. And that's really where the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission comes into play, and they're really helping the town of Southbridge get all the data, put it into Mass Energy Insight, which is a free web-based energy management tool that my agency offers to communities, and then they're going to work on putting that plan together with reports that you guys are working with a vendor on what types of projects, such as new boilers at the high school or new insulation at the high school or any other schools and town buildings as well, how you can show from the savings of putting in those measures that 20% reduction. Criteria 4 is to purchase only fuel-efficient vehicles, and that is adopting a fuel-efficient vehicle policy. The policy really applies more to administrative-type vehicles. It doesn't apply to heavy-duty DPW trucks or vehicles over 8,500 pounds. It's more geared towards administrative-type vehicles, maybe inspectional services, and what the policy would focus on is a mile-per-gallon rating when you purchase new vehicles. So it does not comply with the vehicles that are already in place in the community. If you were going to purchase new vehicles is when it would come into play. And the last criteria 5, is to minimize life cycle costs in new construction, and that would be the recommended ways to adopt the Stretch Energy Code, and that's what Mike Berry from ICF International is going to talk more about. Now, to date, we do have 176 communities that have adopted the Stretch Energy Code. You'll see quite a few communities around you that have done so. Moving on to the next map, we have 155 designated green communities, so communities that have met the 5 specific criteria. The reason you see that difference between 176 and 155, so a delta of about 21 communities, is because those 21 are communities in the process. We have designation rounds once a year. This year's designation round is October 31st. So those 21 communities are working towards submitting an application along with Southbridge that's thinking about it. So moving on to the grant funding. The way the grant funding works for green communities is every community that's designated and meets those 5 criteria gets a base designation amount of $125,000. Then additional grant funding is based on the per capita and the population of the community. So Southbridge would receive an estimated designation grant of $200,000. And that $200,000 could be used on the things that I was talking about that would help the community reduce their energy usage by 20% over that 5-year period. Now, communities that have been in the program since 2010 have asked if they'll have future opportunities for grant funding. In 2012, when we had about 70-plus green communities, we rolled out our competitive grant round. That's where communities, once Southbridge, for example, spends that $200,000 of the designation grant, they'd be able to come in for up to $250,000 per year for competitive grant rounds. So to date, between designation and competitive, we've given out over $60 million in grant funding for energy efficiency projects. And I just put up some of the neighboring communities around Southbridge, such as Dudley, who's received just roughly $170,000, Millbury, who's received over $660,000, because they've come in for future grant rounds, for multiple grant rounds, excuse me. Now with that, I just want to turn it over to Mike Barry.
Thank you for having me. I have the dubious task of following up with Kelly after she's giving you all these great numbers and dollars, and I get to talk building code. So this presentation is a slightly smaller version of the presentation I gave last Monday. I went through it, kind of looked at it. We discussed during the presentation that on August 13th, the state of Massachusetts adopted the new energy code, which will be in effect January 1st of 2017. So I thought it was really more important to focus on the code that's coming than the code that's here. What I'm going to cover in my presentation is what the stretch code is, what it means for residential and commercial construction for towns that adopt it, the new energy codes that I just mentioned that are here now and will be code here in your town on January 1st. And then I'm going to go over some cost analysis of the stretch code. Kelly touched upon this. I'm not going to get into this slide too much. The reason why towns adopt the stretch code is for green communities funding. But there are some towns that have looked at adopting it, and the origins of the stretch code came from towns that were looking to adopt more energy efficient building codes. They had actually gone to the Board of Building Regulations and Standards and actually asked for better energy codes because they thought the state could do better. The state came up with one alternative building code, which they call Appendix 115AA, or the stretch energy code that towns could adopt if they would like it to. Kind of got a little messy there. The reason why the stretch code has been so positively viewed across the Commonwealth and why 176 communities have adopted it, because it looks at the life cycle costs of construction. It looks at the way that homes are going to be built and what it's going to cost to power them, to heat them. Look at areas we just heard in your town, you're on a water ban. Look at things like water conservation. It's a more holistic way of building. And what we're really doing is challenging the state and challenging the builders here in the Commonwealth to build a better home. A home is probably going to be the biggest investment anyone makes. Wouldn't you want to make sure that home is not only built correctly, but it will operate for the span of the life cycle of that home? So criteria 5 requires new buildings to be more energy efficient. The stretch code is an appendix to the 8th edition of the Massachusetts Building Code. We're currently in your town today, in Southbridge. You have an energy code that allows builders to build two ways, through what they call the prescriptive path, which is following the code to a T. Like you follow it, put in X number of R value of insulation, this type of window, this type of heating equipment. Or they can build through the performance path. The performance path allows for trade-offs. It allows you to focus on the areas that are important to you. If you want better heating equipment, you want more insulation, or you want better windows to be put in, you can add and you can subtract. You get what they call trade-offs. Performance building also allows us to test for ultimate performance to make sure that the home is being built the way it should be built and not just the way it could be built. The stretch code focuses on both residential construction, new construction, and commercial construction. The current stretch code that the town of Dudley has right now looks at other areas. When I get into the actual stretch code as it's going to be, it's out now, that's going to be adopted on January 2nd, you're going to see that what the state of Massachusetts has done for builders, and I'm a licensed builder, has actually simplified the code. The new stretch code may not be much of a stretch. I've been doing these presentations since 2010, and I can tell you that I've heard all reasons to not adopt it. Back in 2010, when the stretch code came out, the early adopters are Newton and Cambridge. They were truly taking a leap and really going for the stretch. They were adopting a code that was 2 code cycles ahead of where they were going to be. What happened back in July 1st of 2014 is the state building code, the code you guys have in town today, actually came up and met the stretch code. So as codes change, so will the stretch code change. The stretch code, when it first came out, was a 15-page appendix. And it was very different from the energy code that a lot of towns currently had. And again, that was part of the stretch. I think part of the struggle for builders too, because they didn't understand and it was one more document they had to know. What the state of Massachusetts has done now with the new stretch code that's coming out and will be code on the 1st of 2017 is align it with a code that's coming in, the new energy code. It's only going to focus on new construction. So the big stretch for towns that adopt the stretch code will be the removal of what they call the prescriptive path. Again, currently in your town, you can build 2 ways. You can build a new home through the prescriptive path or the performance path. If your town would adopt the stretch code, you remove the prescriptive path, and the only way you can build a new home, residential new home, or commercial building over 100,000 square feet is through performance testing. And again, this allows for buildings to really be tested for ultimate performance, and I'll get into what performance testing does for a home. Historical buildings are exempt from the stretch code. Commercial buildings under 100,000 square feet are exempt from the stretch code. Renovations and additions and alterations are exempt from the stretch code. You defer back to the base energy code. That's not the current case with the stretch code today. The new stretch code, I mentioned the old one, the one that's currently in place, is 15 pages long. The one the state of Massachusetts adopted is 1 page. And anyone who knows anything about building codes, that tends not to happen. They tend to double in size, not shrink. So the state of Massachusetts has done a really good job of making the new stretch code less of a stretch and a little bit more palatable for builders to understand. And as Kelly mentioned and showed the towns around you that have adopted the stretch code, builders are nomadic. Builders don't tend to build in just one town. So most likely builders building in your town, building new construction, residential or commercial, have probably worked with the stretch code already. The stretch code applies to the same thing the base energy code does, the same code that you have today. It focuses on insulation, lighting, building tightness, duct tightness, renewable energy. It focuses on the same areas, but again, it focuses on performance. Why we test for performance? It's not that the prescriptive building code or energy code isn't good. It's quite good. But what ultimately we don't know is, was the energy efficiency measures that were installed, the insulation, the windows, the heating equipment, put in properly? Are we tightening up our shell too much? Are we tightening up not enough? We're testing to make sure that we're heating the areas and cooling the areas we live in, not the areas we don't. We're focusing on the shells and making sure that our houses aren't communicating into the areas like your attic and your basement. We're building a better house. My wife and I were talking about this today and talking about this, and she was asking me about performance testing, and she's a baker, and she's like, so it'd be like baking a cake and never trying it, never trying the batter, never just following the directions. And I said, kinda. I said, the thing with performance testing is it's that extra something you're gonna do to make sure that it's operating as it should. So the performance testing utilizes a HERS rater, and when I get into cost analysis, you're going to see a HERS rater cost. HERS rater is hired by a builder to provide this testing. The HERS raters provide third-party verification. They're reviewing the home to make sure it's being built as it should and operating as it should. HERS raters use what they call a HERS index. This is the HERS index here on the screen. The HERS index shows energy consumption. You can get a HERS index on an existing house, you can get one on a new house. The HERS index shows how a house is performing by putting it on this yardstick, this grading mechanism. Why do we do this? Because we want to make sure that we have an obtainable goal. So currently, the stretch code that Southbridge would look to adopt, builders would have to hit a HERS 55. This is the same HERS target that's going to be the base code here in Massachusetts. So again, they're aligning the codes to be a lot easier for builders to understand. And what you're going to see is as builders are doing this, more and more performance testing is being added into the code. So whether you adopt the stretch code or not, on January 1st of 2017, the building code's going to change in Southbridge with more of an emphasis on performance testing. The only difference between that code and the base and the stretch code is the removal of that prescriptive path. Excuse me?
I didn't hear the last comment.
The only difference between the stretch code and the base energy code, which your town will have on January 1st, 2007, is the prescriptive path option. So you remove the prescriptive path option when you adopt the stretch code. The only way you can build a new home or commercial building is through performance testing. In Southbridge today, builders are eligible to participate in a Mass Save residential new construction program. As long as there's an owner-investor utility company here in Massachusetts, so National Grid, Eversource, Berkshire Gas, across the Commonwealth, builders are eligible. This is one of the reasons why I like doing these presentations, because for nothing else, builders should tap in this program. As ratepayers here in Massachusetts, we all pay into the Mass Save program. And one aspect of that program is the residential new construction program, which gives builders rebates and incentives to work with HERS raters. You actually get an incentive to work with these HERS raters to provide the performance testing, which again is part of the code today. So performance testing is actually a requirement to have blower door and duct testing done in your town today. So most likely builders are working with a HERS rater already to have that aspect of the performance testing done. The program also provides additional rebates for heating equipment, cooling equipment, and they also give away free lighting. And why is that important? Because the current code today requires 75% of all your lighting has to be what they call high efficacy, which means it has to have an LED bulb or a CFL. This program gives it for free. So this is quite a good thing for builders, but this makes the stretch code that much more easy for builders, because when we look at the cost analysis, you're going to see the impact that the Mass Save program has on the overall cost to meet the stretch code.
Do you want to answer questions now, or do you want to?
I'm happy to answer a question now.
Councilor Vecchia.
These incentives, available incentives, this comes from the state of Massachusetts?
What's that?
These incentives, residential incentives, do they come from the state of Massachusetts?
They come through the utilities. So
From where?
From the utility companies, so
Okay.
through National Grid, and they come through ratepayer funds. So basically, we all pay into it.
Thank you.
Before you continue,
Yeah.
Councilor Mena has another question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I'm a little confused on the prescriptive path code, because my original question was going to be what the impact would be on new homeowners that are building new construction, what type of a financial impact this would be to them. But you're saying that the building code's going to change January 1st, 2017, and the only difference is going to be the prescriptive path code. So I don't understand what that means.
So if your town does not adopt the stretch code, on January 1st, 2017, you're going to adopt the new base energy code. That base energy code will allow builders to build homes two ways, residential new construction two ways in your town. One would be prescriptively, which would be following the code, and the other path would be the performance path. If your town adopts the stretch code, it's the same building code, but you remove the prescriptive path. So in your town, like the town of Dudley, if you were to build a home today in Dudley, you can only build it following the performance path. In your town today, you can build a home following those two paths, the performance and prescriptive. The reason why the stretch code did that was because they wanted to make it different, and performance testing ultimately shows how a building's going to perform, and it helps alleviate that life cycle cost. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit, but the financial impact.
So I'll get into that on the cost analysis, and if I don't hit it, please ask questions, because it is.
Okay, and there was one more thing. You mentioned your wife's a baker. and you bake the cake.
Yeah.
You just don't taste the batter.
Yeah.
But I like to taste the batter first.
Right.
So I think I would like to reach out to the 3 communities that live, Millbury, Holland, and Dudley, to see. I think that would be a good idea, because I like cake batter.
Yeah, I also use an engine analysis too. My dad's a technician, an auto technician, and it would be the same thing as dropping a motor into a car, not actually doing the diagnostic testing, would be how I describe performance testing. But I do know, like you said, Kelly mentioned the grants, the competitive grants, and towns submit an annual report, and one part of the annual report is providing all the permit data of the stretch code activity in their community. So actually, I've had a chance to look at that, so it would be something that...
So you're talking about the grants just for the town or for the citizens too? Now, the citizens have to know about these grants, and they have to fill out the grants themselves. So who gives them...
So the grant Kelly talked about would be for the town.
For the town?
Yep.
So it doesn't include private citizens, build-in new construction homes?
Nope. So the citizens would tap into this program here through Mass Save to tap into incentives, and either the builder can do it, the homeowner can do it, the architect can do it.
And Mass Save, we already have Mass Save in place right now, so they could do that with or without this, no matter what.
Oh yeah, that's most definitely, yeah. And I encourage that. As ratepayers, we pay into this, so we should all be tapping into it. You should have an energy audit done in your home. You buy a new appliance, you should have, exactly. You should use the incentive, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So the cost analysis I'm going to show is a 2,200 square foot home, 3-bedroom home in Worcester. And we're seeing more homes being built using electricity. I'm also going to show another example that's natural gas. This home has what they call electric heat pumps in it, an electric heat pump water heater. So that's why it's electrically heated. You can see on the left-hand side, you see where it says HERS index. If this home was built to the base energy code, it would hit a 57. If it was built to the stretch code, it would hit a 49. As I mentioned, with the HERS index, as you move down this HERS index, you're moving to what they call net zero. So a net zero home puts as much power back into the grid as it takes, so it nets out. So as you move down this HERS index, you're actually becoming more energy efficient. So again, when you see this cost analysis, you see a home, if you follow just the code, the prescriptive code, you'd hit about a 57. With a stretch code, you'd hit 49, so you're getting a better performing home. The estimated cost to meet the stretch code in this example was $2,066. This builder received $4,793 in utility incentives. Basically came out cash positive and then some, just tapping into the utility rebates. You can see the cost, though, to meet the stretch code. The $2,066 isn't a lot of money, especially when you look down below when you're factoring it into a 30-year mortgage based at 4%. You're talking about $141 annually additional cost to your mortgage, but what you're saving in your utility bills, you're probably coming out way ahead. What this shows is that this house is cash positive in year one. You're basically making your money back, your initial investment of $2,066, especially because you tapped into those utility rebates. This shows what was changed to meet the stretch code. And basically what you're getting is you're getting better heating equipment and better cooling equipment. And the reason why it's important to point that out, because currently in your town today, if you were to build a home and you put in the top of line, high performing heating equipment or cooling equipment, and you build by the prescriptive path, you get no credit for doing that. Your heating equipment, cooling equipment isn't factored in. With performance testing, it is. So again, performance testing looks at how the building operates as a system, a whole system. And so it's really important when you see that something as simple as upgrading your heating equipment, which you get a very good rebate to do so, you actually benefit from. The bottom chart on the right-hand side shows the utility rebates. So basically, the builder or homeowner gets back $1,250 for just building a high-performance home. They got back $2,500 in heat pump rebates through Mass Save and through the Mass Clean Energy Center. They get back $750 for heat pump hot water heaters. They got free bulbs through the program that are valued at $200. And it's really important to point out that working through the Mass Save program and working with one of these HERS raters, they actually apply for all the rebates for you. So you don't actually have to do it. So they bundle them all, they go in and get every one of these rebates. And again, builders and homeowners negotiate whether it goes to them, it comes off the bottom line of the construction of the home. This is a program that 34% of residential new construction across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is participating in. So there's a lot of money there. And again, this dropped this house by 8 points, and that's pretty significant only by the side. 8 points is a pretty good amount of energy you're saving, especially when you're heating and cooling a home with electricity. The cost analysis, this is the same house built with natural gas heating and hot water. And you can see again, if you follow the base code, you got a 62. If you went for the HERS index to meet the stretch code, you got to a 55, which is the exact target. That's exactly where you want to be. The cost of adjustments, as you can see, are pretty close to electrically heated home because there are a lot of thermal improvements and a lot of heating system improvements. And again, to move a heating system from a 93 to a 97 or a 98% efficiency is a couple $100, of which you're almost getting back 100% in incentives, and you'll see that on the next slide. This person received utility rebates of $2,050, basically kind of eliminated all the costs to meet the stretch code. They're saving $165 per year in energy costs. Their change to their mortgage payment, there is no change. They're actually basically netted out, and they're cash positive in year 1 and cash positive in year 2. Again, on the left-hand side of this slide, it shows the features of the home. I'm not going to get into it because it's a lot of code talk and a lot of insulation and windows, and Kelly told me not to get into that tonight because I can easily go down that road. But again, you look at the top right, you can see what they got and what they had to update. So they had to have a HERS rating done. They had to upgrade their floor insulation. They had to put in a better furnace. They put in a better hot water heater. They put in LED lighting. And again, they basically got back the same amount of money they put out, their incremental cost to meet the stretch code, they got back in utility incentives. So again, when I was doing this talk back in 2010, 11, 12, 13, I've done 140 of these across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've worked with a lot of the towns that Kelly showed on the map. This was a real stretch. But again, performance testing is becoming part of our code. It's part of the code today in your town. So this is not something new to builders. It's something that's going to be something they're going to understand, and it's the way the state's moving to more and more performance-based codes because they like outcome-based codes. They like to make sure ultimately what people are paying for is what they're receiving. And the HERS raters and the verification of HERS raters do really kind of brings that full circle and make sure that that's what's happening with homeowners. Kelly showed this slide already, so it's 176 communities that adopted the stretch code. The 155 communities adopted the Green Communities Program, and I'll leave that up there as well for additional information regarding the stretch code or Kelly's presentation.
Any other questions, Councilor Steves?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming back to us. I don't know, I was part of that discussion that you had last Monday. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thanks for coming back to us. I was there on
Thank you
Monday
for
as well,
having me.
so a lot of what you just said I heard then. One thing that didn't occur to me then, and I was curious about, if you're talking about life cycle, is there anything in the stretch code that takes a look at the materials the building itself is made out of and where they're coming from?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, in IECC 2015, which is the base energy code that the state just adopted on the 13th of August and will become the sole energy code on January 1st. There's a lot of standards in there, and because the stretch code is IECC 2015 and it's just the performance path, it refers back to a lot of, they call them ASTMs, they're building material standards, and it will actually talk about things like green building materials, and a lot of the higher performing building materials that you would use in performance path that would get you to move down that HERS index are going to be more greener energy products. Like something factoring renewable energy can help drive down that HERS index. So I think the code by itself organically moves people to putting in better safer energy efficient materials. So the code, I would say, if you're looking for something to put you to sleep at night, you grab a copy of IECC 2015, but there's a whole set of standards in there. But also other towns, like the city of Boston and other towns, have also adopted like green building codes, especially for commercial buildings, and also for like school construction. There's a green school construction standard as well. So I think the code has a lot of language in there, and the stretch code refers right back to the base energy code.
Okay.
Councilor DePietro?
Through the chair, I've never been a fan from the get-go on this new code, and because you folks haven't addressed, and I've been invited to forums out towards Boston and towards the Cape, addressing whether these 7 different towns, and they've been one after another on Southbridge, another one on the list, we're going to have to make this decision. And what always killed me with this was it's a very tight home, but it's not a very air efficient home. What always bothered me was the air circulation, which lends itself to mold, bacteria, that type of thing. And I'm old school. The house should be ventilated, type of thing. And I'm speaking with several folks in Boston now who actually write mass building code, and they kind of giggle when they talk about it. So is that something that, through all the information you've given, I mean, it's a tight home, but have you addressed that at all to try and sell this?
So,
in that respect?
Yeah. So,
because I've seen none of that.
Yep. It's a huge concern of the building community as a whole, and the code we have adopted here is the International Conservation Code. The code that we have today, you have in Southbridge, which is called IECC 2012, mandates that you have to properly ventilate a house. It refers to a standard, ASHRAE 62.1.
Yeah, you're smiling, as defined by...
Yeah, well, but what I was going to say was, you don't know if your house is properly ventilated or too tight unless you have the performance testing done. Because the code today tells you where you have to seal, tells you how much you have to seal around every chimney chase and plumbing, wire fixture, everything. You got guys out there who are foaming homes and tightening them up, and because they're not doing the performance testing, aren't following ASHRAE 62.1 and don't know if the house is ventilated properly. The current code in Massachusetts requires a home to be 3 air exchanges per hour. That's the minimum tightness it has to be able to meet. That's pretty tight. And that's under the base prescriptive code. So it's even scarier, the fact that homes are being built to that standard and not being tested to see if they need ventilation. And I agree with you. Homes need to ventilate.
If I may, through the chair, yeah, the R value in all these towns that have adopted this, that's the first thing they check. These guys are there with their little meters, but nobody's behind them with the airflow, to my knowledge.
So,
and that bothers me.
Yeah.
If town of Southbridge were to adopt this.
So HERS raters who do the performance testing are required through their training and can lose their certification to do HERS ratings if they're found not in compliant to doing the performance testing for the air exchanges per hour and making sure the home's ventilated by number of square feet, number of occupants per home, number of bedrooms. There's a formula that they use, but again, builder running around building prescriptively isn't doing that.
But right now, says who? It's not.
I'm sorry if I'm not following. It says.
Well, I'm saying to get your occupancy.
Yep.
Right now, in these towns that have adopted it. Excuse me if I overstep, Mr. Chair, with a third question. You have to have that R value. But I've yet to speak to anyone that had to qualify for the air testing in towns that have adopted this. And that's kind of a quandary to me. I just...
Yeah, well, you know, inspectional services in towns and the state of Massachusetts are required by law to mandate and to enforce the building code. 780 CMR, the Mass State Building Code, is state law. And if a building code official is not mandating blower-door testing, they're breaking the law. So I don't know how many building inspectors would be out there purposely putting their jobs at risk. I'm not saying that that may not be happening, but again, that's why the third-party verification and having HERS raters do this is really important, because they're actually inspecting the insulation, they're inspecting the air sealing, they're setting up that blower door, they're testing for infiltration, where again...
Which is mandated, absolutely.
Yep.
But not airflow. It's not part of the same description. It's not, that I've seen or that I've read or that it's been introduced to me.
It's part of the stretch code. If you guys were to adopt the stretch code as it's written today, it's going to be based, the stretch code January 1st, 2017 refers to IECC 2015 and how they addressed ventilation. And again, that would have to be enforced by your code official, and if it's not, then you're not in compliance. So,
Which is a tough one.
yeah.
To do that and airflow is a tough one, and again, a whole nother subject, but these towns that have adopted have had a problem with it. To address both, it's my experience.
Again, I've done these across the state. I'm a licensed builder. I do a lot of trainings, and I know there's some compliance issues across the Commonwealth with code not being enforced to the T. But with that being said, ultimately, at the end of the day, code officials are mandated by the Department of Public Safety to enforce the code. It's just like a police officer would say, well, you know what? I'll let that car speed because it's blue, but I'll pull that one over because it's red. You know, and so the code is subject to interpretation, but not allowing them to detract from the code, only to add to the code.
Of course.
Great question.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Mena.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. One more question. You mentioned that this didn't cover repairs to homes, but I thought I saw a slide in there where it said it did. It had like one bullet point about the new construction homes, and then it had another down below it that showed.
So.
No.
So where it
says. If you go back. Only for addition of the Mass Building Code, repairs, additions, alterations, follow base energy code.
So towns that adopt the stretch code, if you're building an addition, you don't have to do performance testing. You defer to the base energy code. So if you guys were to adopt the stretch code does not affect new additions, renovations, or alterations, only new construction. So you defer to the base energy code. So right now, again, what I mentioned is the stretch code is an appendix to the state energy code. What they did is the new stretch code that's coming out, they aligned them. So when you do something like repairs, you just defer to the base energy code. The stretch code that Dudley has today actually has a separate mandate for additions and renovations, but the state got rid of that because they wanted this to focus on life cycle costs, and your biggest bang for your buck is on new construction.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other further questions? Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Thank you for having me.
Mrs. Brown. Thank you so much. Now we will move on to agenda item number 8, Citizens Forum. Are there any citizens that would like to address the council with something that's not on tonight's agenda? Are there any citizens that would like to address the council with something that's not on the agenda tonight? I will ask one more time. Are there any citizens that would like to address the council with something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item number 9, vote to confirm the appointment of Michael Janes as a citizens member to the General Government Subcommittee for a one-year term effective immediately through July 31st, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilor Mena?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Vecchia?
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 10, vote to ratify the contract with Mellison and Heath as the audit firm for the town of Southbridge effective June 30th, 2016 through June 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any, we have several, okay. Counselor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Looking at this, I don't recall this coming through subcommittee and being discussed with the counselors. And also, it just shows vote to ratify the contract with Mellison Heath as the audit from the town of Southbridge effective June 30th, 2016 through June 30th, 2018, and it doesn't discuss any price. And I look in here, and we see 2016 in the contract. The first year it shows a price, the second year it shows a price going up $2,750, and then the following year it shows a price going up as well. So I'm a little confused why this didn't go through subcommittee first and why this wasn't discussed and why the costs of this contract are not on the agenda.
Mr. Town Manager, would you like to answer those questions?
Sure. I've discussed this with Karen. She says usually this is never actually goes to a subcommittee, so she didn't think it had to go to the subcommittee this time as well. This was a process following the state law under Chapter 30B. This was a request for proposal that was put out in the market. All the proposals came in. The bids had to be specifically opened. There was a subcommittee and evaluation team made up of the town accountant, made up of the town tax collector, and made up of the town assessor who evaluated all the proposals. So the amount of the contract, I'm not sure where that third year is not in there, but the amount of the contract was all fixed as a result of the bidding process. So I can check and get you what that amount is for the third year, but it is a requirement of state law to follow the bidding process.
The third year is in there, but money that comes through the money that is spent usually comes through subcommittee and it has to be ratified by the council, and we have to we normally discuss it. So I'm a little confused why this one went by us.
I mean, if you would like, we can push this back down to subcommittee, but again, this is a process that's defined under the state of law. Under the state of Massachusetts 30B law, we have no ability to change the process since it is a state law.
Okay, that's fine, but it doesn't even say that on here. And that would have been discussed in a subcommittee and we would have known. So that's usually the process.
Again, there's no problem if you want to move it back to subcommittee, but it effectively is going to come out the same way because the process is what the state law requires.
All set, Councilor Manna? Councilor Vecchia.
I wasn't going to say anything, but you want to make a motion to bring it back to subcommittee?
Are you making the motion?
Yeah, I make the motion.
Do we have a second? Councilor McKenzie, seconds. Roll call, please.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Vecchia?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor DePietro?
Yes.
Counselor McKenzie?
Yes.
7 yes.
What subcommittee is it going to?
This will go through general government.
Okay.
Councilor Clements is
Thank you.
pointing out that I failed to have discussion prior to the vote. So if we want to have discussion in regards to that, we may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name's Dave Smith, and I live at 145 Ridge Road. I have to apologize. I couldn't hear what the discussion was. Now, has this item been referred to subcommittee?
Yes.
Just was.
The vote has just been taken to bring it back to subcommittee.
Okay, well, I guess I can hold my comments and issues until then. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Clements.
I just have to, I think it's, again, to clarify from the last time when I brought it up, it is in our charter to, I'm not saying procurement wasn't done and that the state requires a certain procurement for auditors. However, our charter states that we vote on it, and usually in such matters, it goes to subcommittee first and then comes to council. So I'm just, for the record, making sure that people are clear about, regardless of the state law, our charter defines that we have to do this. So it'll go to subcommittee. We can discuss it there again. It's fine with me.
Yes,
What's today, Monday? I should be able to add it as an agenda item for Thursday so we can move it forward.
Thank you. Just seeing that I failed to have discussion and I've opened it up, the one question I have for Mr. Town Manager, how many years did we have the previous audit firm?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I know it was longer than 3, but I don't know the exact years. I can check with Karen and be happy to get that answer for you. I know it was quite a long time. I know that I asked Karen and discussed with and Karen is the town accountant, wanted to be sure that we changed up auditors because we want different people to be looking in our books to ensure that nothing is ever missed. So it's always a good common practice to change auditors on a regular basis to make sure that all records are looked at in a different kind of way.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councilor
Yeah, I
Steves?
actually had a couple of quick questions, too. How many bidders were there?
I believe there were 3 bids in this case.
2 or 3. And what would last year's cost for auditing were?
The last year's cost that came in,
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, so I can check that for you and get you that
Something that
information.
can be discussed in subcommittee.
Yeah, we can bring it up in
be,
subcommittee,
yeah.
but yeah.
That's fine.
But really, in truth, to be honest with you, Councilor Steves, it kind of really doesn't matter in some ways because when you put it out for a request for bid, you're going to get whatever those bids are. So whatever the cost was in previous years won't matter as much. And frankly, as you know, those contracts go over the life of at least 3 years. So prices do change in that time. So we are required by law, just to be clear, and that's why really we can't change anything here. We are required to take the lowest bidder who meets the scope of services that we put out, and this bidder did just that.
All set? At this time, I would refer all further discussion to the subcommittee meeting. Moving on to agenda item number 11, discuss town manager evaluation process. I would like to open up by stating that I had requested that all councilors fill out the form that was sent, that was handed out last town council meeting. And also, I know I wasn't diligent in regards to sending it out via email quick enough, but I did send it out. Thank you, Councilor Manna, for reminding me. It was just an oversight, but that did go out, and therefore I am waiting those evaluations so I can draft and do a summary of those goals and objectives. Per the manager's contract, that's what I have to do, is tally up the scores, and then we will set up a meeting where we can discuss that openly. So therefore, I hope that each counselor can give me those goals and objectives, that evaluation form, so we can move the process along, and we can then schedule a new meeting in regards to goals and objectives moving forward for this fiscal year. Any other discussion? Councilor Vecchia.
Yeah, well, obviously, I don't know how many councils have filled these out. How many councils have filled them out?
I've received one.
Well, I need some more time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm about half done with mine.
Okay. Councilor Clements.
Thank you. Well, obviously, there's more to discuss than just the paperwork that you gave to us. When you mentioned that to me before the prior meeting, I was kind of surprised that you had put together a form to give to us that no other counselor had approved or commented on. While you are to tally, there is nothing in the information or in your process, or excuse me, let's see, in your authority, I should say, to create a form of any type that we're supposed to fill out. I talk about this from historical perspective. I've been here a long time, 7 years, and back the last time we had a permanent town manager, this issue came up because we had a contract identical to the contract we have now in regard to salaries and evaluations and such, and it became apparent that there was no real process. While the same statement of a review and evaluation on goals and objectives is listed in both contracts, previously, when Town Manager Christopher Clark was here, there was no real process in place. And at that time, we had a Town Manager's Subcommittee, which has been since dissolved. We also still had General Government Subcommittee and all the others. And it was determined that we as a council, as the oversight body for our town manager, as the employer of our town manager, needed some way to actually not redefine, not say whether the goals and objectives that have been defined by the council in a joint relationship with the manager are, or not to go beyond that, but to actually have some type of criteria in evaluating those goals and objectives. Because a goal and objective, if you get to the end and you've met it, that's nice, but how did you get there? And what process? And did the council, over the course of a year, agree with the methods and the means of getting to the goals and objectives? So there was a large process that took place, and as you know, I questioned you about this form, and then I took it upon myself to do some research. I included in all the packets of the councilors a large packet of information that goes back starting with 2009, March, the council agenda, in which item number 18 was vote to approve a form as recommended by the General Government Subcommittee. I included the Management Performance and Development Appraisal, Town of Southbridge Town Manager. The form was not for Christopher Clark, the form was for the Southbridge Town Manager at the time or beyond. The Town Council meeting minutes of 3:30 were also included, in which the vote passed. I also included a memorandum from Chris Clark on his performance evaluation dated August of 2010, just to sort of reiterate what we had done as council back then and how it was applicable. I then moved forward, and I also provided for you the general government agenda of 8:30, in which we reviewed the town manager evaluation form, and then also a town council agenda of September 27, 2010, where item number 13 was vote to ratify the town manager's evaluation form again. I also provided the minutes from that meeting, where it showed that item 13 passed, and where at the time Councilor Regis, who was instrumental in helping to form that evaluation appraisal, stated she didn't understand why we were voting on this again, because we had voted on it last year, and at that point had made it a policy and procedure for future town manager evaluations. So I included all this information, and I included one other piece, and that was the general government meeting minutes from January 6th of 2016. Review, discuss town manager evaluation form. And at the time, Chairman Carrasco was, it was general government, and he was the chairman then, and he asked let's see, there's a statement made in the minutes. Chairman Carrasco asked the purpose that this was on the agenda was because the amount of new councilors, and also since we have not done a town manager evaluation since the days of Chris Clark. He wanted the committee to review the form that was used then, and if there were any suggestions that need to be made, it was a good time to start thinking about it. He noted that there should need to be a council of the whole was needed to schedule to discuss goals and objectives before the actual evaluation. So I point that out because it was noted in January that this form existed. So when I was discussing with the chairman prior to the meeting, I questioned the evaluation and I questioned the form. And he commented that we had to just review the goals and objectives, and then he handed this form to us at the meeting. And as I said, I did the research, and I felt that prior council votes had put a policy in place to evaluate. Now, there's some contention as to whether or not the statement in the town manager's contract precludes us from using this form. Did a lot more research. There's a statement, the council shall review and evaluate the manager every year from date of appointment. Said review and evaluation shall be based on the goals and objectives developed jointly by the council and the town manager. The goals and objectives are developed jointly by the council and the town manager. I absolutely agree. We had meetings on that, and I agree 100%. The review and the evaluation is based on those goals and objectives. Absolutely. But the manager doesn't define our process to evaluating him. No employee defines the process to evaluate their boss, the owner of the company perhaps, whoever employed them, and that's exactly who 9 members of this council are. And I know it's not an agreement, but I'm just giving you this information so you at home can make your own decision, and we'll abide by whatever council wants to do. I encourage you to look up the Management Performance and Development Appraisal, Town of Southbridge Town Manager, that I told you was adopted in '09 and re-ratified in '10. The first page talks about the evaluation of key performance areas, goals accomplished, general strengths and areas of improvement, and there's a rating system: excellent, good, satisfactory, needs improvement. And there are 4 pages of questions, pretty much typical employment questions. But more importantly, because the contention seems to be, the disagreement seems to be, because I received an email from the manager in that regard, as did, I believe, most counselors, it seems to be that he feels that he did not approve this process, and therefore it should not be used. And I'm going to contend that this process was specifically voted and put in place by council members for, as I said, the evaluation of those jointly developed goals and objectives. And I say that because there is an entire policy and procedure section. There's a purpose in which the town council is responsible for conducting ongoing performance evaluation processes for the position of town manager. The purpose is as follows: to establish performance objectives for the town manager that are aligned with and intended to execute the vision and strategy of the council, to assure the action plans to implement those objectives are developed and that the required resources are available. There was a problem one time back when we give goals to our town managers, but then we don't make sure there's finances for them. Well, that's not fair to a town manager. So that's a very good line. To provide feedback to the town manager on his or her performance against those objectives. To provide an opportunity for feedback from the manager to the council, because he needs to let us know or she to let us know what they want. And E, to consider the town manager for an annual salary increase as determined by contract. That's very important because while in the evaluation section it says said review and evaluation shall be based on goals and objectives developed jointly, in the salary section it clearly indicates that the town agrees to pay the manager for services rendered under the agreement his base salary plus a minimum of 2% based upon an annual satisfactory performance review, subject to applicable withholdings and all that other good stuff. I point that out because actually in Chris Clark's contract, we didn't put the rate increase was subject to an annual satisfactory performance review, and we knew we had made a mistake back then. And so in this contract, a performance review is very important in order to get a raise. So I'm going to continue here because under process, the process will follow the annual cycle beginning with the manager's employment anniversary date. The council will meet with the manager as needed to execute the process. And then we move on to the focus, developing a shared written agreement of the manager's performance objectives for the next year. We've done some of that. All relevant town council documents and actions should be considered as input for these performance objectives. Performance objectives should include specific measurable action items as well as the values, knowledge, and skills needed to deliver them. Based on these documents and other input from council, the manager will propose a set of objectives to be reviewed and modified by council in discussion with the manager. And he has done that. We have a great list of objectives and goals that was set with the manager. And this is important because this document really links what's in the contract. The focus, evaluating performance against agreed upon objectives and modifying objectives as appropriate based on current conditions. Specifically says evaluating performance agreed upon objectives.